wrestling has more than one royal family.
You know, it's funny, because I'm just this excited to the point where I'm just letting the music play, and I notice that I'm not muted, and I'm actually muted, but it's okay, because the fact of the matter is this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of the phenomenon known to all as Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, it's stated right there, it is the phenomenal one. And yes, I am unmuted and I'm able to go ahead and speak to you, the fans of professional wrestling. But of course, I am not alone, because I'm joined by the limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun who's not having a hard time holding his alligators nor Mets jersey down. Now give me 2 claps and a peep snatch.
Woo!
There we go.
Here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the deep voice Dynamo is in the building. What's going on, my friend?
I'm doing fine, peeps. I'm doing fine. I know you're doing fine to yourself, too. And I know the fans of professional wrestling are doing fine also. And of course, you guys are probably asking yourselves, why the heck is he playing Kingdom? I wonder why. Peeps, a lot has happened in the past week.
Yes.
And to think that we are sitting here today thinking that this actually happened.
Yes.
It's just surreal.
Yes.
But enough of us. Let's just go ahead and say shout out to every single one of you guys that are in right now watching Saturday afternoon's main event. We are glad that you guys are here to go ahead and sit here with us to listen and just to go ahead and have good times, laughs, and all the wrestling news possible. Of course, we always go ahead and send out that little notion that if you want to go ahead and hear more news, you want to go ahead and associate with us, right there, peeps, you can just go ahead and point right down to it. Yes, you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event, or tweet us at Saturday Main. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first segment of the day, and that is peeps' favorite Fast Track. Of course, you know what this is. We are here to go ahead and try to put in as much news as possible, and if we can't get to it, we start like this. So, let's go ahead and get into the first one. And peeps, it's Logan Paul getting literal heat, no pun intended. This past week, or past Saturday as you may say, Logan Paul had the other performance of a lifetime by going ahead and facing the Mysterios at WrestleMania. Peeps, did we actually think that this man would underperform? Yes, but wow, to think that he proved us wrong and put on that much of a good show. Now listen, the reason I'm saying this is because he did the 3 amigos, goes to the top rope, does the Eddie shimmy, and frog splashes. Peeps.
Yes.
Something tells me that, you know, WWE actually wants its celebrities to actually wrestle during Mania, instead of just going ahead and being there, pulling a Cyndi Lauper or a Maria Menounos. Hats off to them, because they, you know, they once did it, and I mean, you know, I respect them for it. But of course, it wasn't traditional.
Remember Snooki when she decided to get into the ring?
Yes,
also?
Exactly. So I mean, there's many names and many faces to it, but peeps, to think that now Logan Paul can be added to the mix and he may actually be a part of a feud? What are your thoughts?
He has the physique. He has the look. He's definitely unlikable, because we've seen that as far as his over-the-air persona, his social media persona, which I don't know if it's a persona or if it's just an extension of who he is.
Something tells me it's a persona.
We've always said before that most people in the business that we love, the best characters are the ones that are themselves with the volume turned all the way up.
Yes.
And I don't think Logan Paul has to really stretch too far to do that. But athletically, he's a tall guy. He's got a pretty decent build, which is what Vince McMahon looks for. But I was not expecting to give another celebrity the Bad Bunny Memorial Award for Best Celebrity Wrestler in a WrestleMania. He did really good, and I can't believe I'm saying this. He actually held his own with a lot of the guys that were there. Now, was it better than Bad Bunny? Maybe because his physique and the fact that he was in the ring in certain parts that were limited, that helped kind of accentuate the good parts of what he was able to do and kind of hide the negatives that he probably was obviously being green as far as being a wrestler concerned. But to be in the ring as athletic as he was, the spots that he pulled, and he was a genuine, like you said before, a genuine heat magnet.
Exactly.
Only for the match to end the way it did and then have the particular ending the way it was. I'm telling you, I was thoroughly impressed. And like Jesse Ventura, I don't impress easy.
Let him know, peeps. Let him know.
Yes.
But I mean, certainly hats off to Logan Paul for that. And I mean, I'm looking forward to a feud with The Miz. Why not? That would be good to see. But another thing that would be good to see, which is actually happening next week on Rampage, peeps, we're getting a Texas death match.
Oh yes.
How great is this? And you know who it is? Adam versus Adam. Mm-hmm. What better way to see? And I mean, of course, Adam is coming out on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see what I did there.
Anyways, the question is, which one?
Which one? Exactly. This past week on Dynamite, Adam Cole versus Christian may have stole the show for that week.
Yes.
And after the match, you had Adam Page tell Adam Cole that they will go ahead and duel it out for the AEW World Title in a Texas death match. Hats off right now, peeps. You can go ahead and mark it off. Today is what? April 9th? At 12:10 p.m., the Phenomenal One goes ahead and says that Adam Cole is winning the AEW World Title. Say this now. I just say this now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I said it once. You know, second time's the charm, right? Or like, in the words of Matilda, first is the worst, second is the best, third is the one with the sparkly dress. But, you know, it doesn't really matter. Let's just go ahead and hope and pray that Adam Cole wins this. What are your thoughts, peeps?
Well, the one thing that I will say is Adam Page, I got to bring out the right one. Adam Page actually showed some gumption in his promo, the way he got in Adam Cole's face and basically forced the interview, forced the promo, forced the aggression onto him. But I've been saying this for a number of weeks. AEW has done an absolute awful job of promoting Adam Page as their world champion. Even though Adam Page has had some sensational matches. We know of the 2 matches that he's had with Bryan Danielson. We know about the feud that he had with Lance Archer. We know of this feud that's going on between himself and Adam Cole. They had a sensational match at Revolution. So now we know this feud is going to continue. I think everybody is kind of looking at Adam Page to lose the championship to Adam Cole, and I think that Adam Cole is a future champ. But if they're trying to move the needle, I can't believe I'm borrowing another gimmick line there.
We'll get to that soon.
We'll get to that eventually. But what happens is that what AEW has done is they've taken a world champion and they've kind of kept him in the mid to mid upper range card, and they've done a bad job of promoting him as the world champion. They have not put him many times at the end of the show. They haven't put him that many times at the beginning of the show. And what they've done, it's almost like they've forgotten that he's the champion. And I don't understand how that promotion goes with that particular person as your champ, and everybody else around him is getting much more promotion, has gotten much more attention in that slot, even to the extent of what they did last week with the Undisputed Era, so to speak, stealing the belts. And it actually looked, if you didn't know any better and you just tuned in, you'd have thought
these guys are champions.
Yeah,
why not?
Exactly. And they had the look of champions, and they talked like champions, and they brought themselves out as champions. So if they're going to keep the belt on Adam Page, they've got to do a much better job of promoting that. And that's something that they have to do better for anyone to believe that Page is a champ. Now, it doesn't hurt that they're going to be in a town that is an Adam Page town, an Adam Page city. And it's a Texas death match, which should be in his realm. But the way that things are going, unless something changes, I think that Adam Page is going to keep the belt, and Cole is going to get that much more frustrated. Because I just don't see a change yet, even though I understand where you're coming from.
Well, peeps, to me, I think this is what's going to happen. If Thunder Rosa can go ahead and get that much of, airtime and shine in San Antonio to go ahead and win the title, due to the fact that she is a face and she was the contender, why not go ahead and make Adam Cole much more of a heel by going ahead and having him beat Hangman Adam Page in Texas in a Texas death match against the leader of Cowboy Sugar Honey Iced Tea.
Yes.
And have him gain the AEW World title with the help of Red Dragon. I mean,
yes,
it makes all the total sense of the world. But we'll just have to wait and see this Friday, since it's a live Rampage. Tune in, people, because as soon as SmackDown is done, I know where my head is heading. Straight to AEW on Turner Television.
Yes, lots of pizza and iced tea for me. That's what I'm going to be looking at.
Yes. But, peeps, something else? Speaking of champions, yeah, this felt good doing too. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of champions, the double champ does what he wants. And if you know who I'm talking about the real champion, the phenomenal one. I'm playing, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, calm down, okay? Not me. I am talking about the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. And after WrestleMania this past Sunday, we now have an undisputed champion. And peeps, the only thing we can do is acknowledge him.
Of course.
But I think we're going to go ahead and lead off and just end this out by just saying, okay, yeah, he's champion. That match was horrific. A trilogy of matches that were all the same. The only difference was that this was going to be longer and this was not going to have any interferences.
Yes.
Peeps, what do you think about this match? Because to think that this was the main event, the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, and I went into this match thinking that this was going to be Hogan versus Andre.
Yes.
What do you think, peeps? Because if I say something else, I'm gonna say I digress. So I don't want to go ahead and get into anything. You can speak for me.
Yes. First off, you got a rant coming, so it's not gonna be a long one.
It's gonna be a short one, but
we got a short one, but we got a rant coming.
I'm here.
First and foremost, when you preface a match by giving all these superlatives about, this is the greatest, stupendous, most diabolical Superman, whatever word you want to throw out there, you should know, okay, something's off. This usually happens. You only put the superlatives in front of a match after the match has been done.
Of course.
We know that they hyped this through the roof. WWE backed themselves in this corner by way of injuries, by way of cutting different talent, to now putting all of their eggs in that basket and having your tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar. And as I told you last week, Roman was going to win this match, and it was going to be a tell if what happened with the Usos, how that would give you a kind of like a tell as to where they were leaning going forward. And the fact that this was billed as the biggest match ever, boy, was this a letdown. Because I tell you right now, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, not only was that not the best match of the pay-per-view, that wasn't even the best match of the night. So I'm going to say that the way that this was booked was probably the only way it could have been booked, based on the fact that I think Brock has kind of shown his limited range now, where he's just doing, his personality has grown, but the in-ring talent as far as suplex, clothesline, suplex, clothesline, punch, power slam, it's the same.
Only with the exception of a Kimura lock.
And a Kimura, which damn near broke Roman Reigns' arm, but we'll get into that also a little bit later on. But the fact that the WWE sold a bill of goods when it came to what this match was going to be, and I said, I hope that this match is going to be good. I remember texting you that, I hope that this is at least it's a good match. Uh-huh. It was good in the sense that no one broke anything. We had a start and we had a finish. There was nothing quote unquote screw jobby about it. It was as cut and dry as you could possibly get. It wasn't a good match. And for a WrestleMania match, a WrestleMania card, to have this build as your unification, like I said, they backed themselves into a corner, and this is the way that they're booking, and we don't know what's going to be the case. Not only have you, like I said, booked yourself into a corner, now you have to worry about overexposing Roman Reigns, because now he's going to potentially be back and forth on Raw and on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. And you're going to now say, if, God forbid, something happens to Roman and he gets hurt, or something along those lines happens, they're going to have to come up with a believable way to say, well, Roman is off because of, the tribal chief has it booked in his contract that he can, if he's hurt, something happens, nobody can touch me. It's my building, it's my company, and et cetera. So they can go a million ways, but they booked themselves into a corner, and this is where they are right now. And let's just hope that going forward, nothing happens to dampen this train that's been burrowing through to watch this great athlete become to where he is now, and hope it doesn't take the company along with it.
Well, let's hope. But in other things at WrestleMania, we got to witness a new faction. You know what that is? The Ministry of Darkness 2.0. Yeah, peeps. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, at WrestleMania, we got to see Edge in full-out form, brood, narcissistic, 2006, with a hint of Ministry of Darkness Undertaker with a higher power in the mix. All in all, we got a new Edge. And alongside him is his new member, Damian Priest. But the thing about this is that news is saying, of course, I know people hate reading the dirt sheets, they're saying that there are going to be 2 more members. And those are going to be former NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa and Rhea Ripley. Peace, what do you think about this whole faction probably going to be forming and most likely going to be in the works of, that new face of fear in WWE? What do you think?
Yes, the Dark Ministry of Brood 2.0. Yes.
That's a good name right there.
That is literally what I see. And I remember watching the way that it developed, and I said, this looks good. The only thing that it did was, first of all, Edge and AJ, as I told you before, was going to be the Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage match of the card, which was really good.
Exactly.
Even though as great of a match that was, to me, that was not the best match of the show. And I'm going to get into that later on. We'll get into that later on. But this match was great on so many levels because it started off slow. It had 3 acts. The beginning part was the feeling out process. Then it was AJ getting a little bit of one-upsmanship in the second part. And then Edge getting that little run. Then the third act was the part where AJ looked like he was about to win the match. The only thing that put just a little bit of salt on it was the fact that with Damian Priest being outside, it kind of showed you who was going to win the match. That's the only part of this that I didn't really particularly like in the way it was, but I understand why it was done, and how it was done was okay.
Yes.
But in general, the match itself was great.
Oh, of
and the fact that Damian Priest is getting this kind of push by getting tutelage under Edge, and that will further put more bluster on a great athlete such as Damian Priest. And I've watched him for years when he was in the independents and he did all of the things that you see now. These are the kinds of things that you get to see. I believe his name was Punisher Martinez.
Yes,
when he was
Martinez.
in Punishment Martinez. And when I saw him then, and then I said, oh, he signed with WWE. He's in NXT. I was like, okay. And then they gave him the new name. I was like, okay, well, this can grow on me. Now we've seen what he can do. He won the United States Championship, although it wasn't that long of a run, and it was kind of really messed up how they took the belt off of him, and the residuals of what has happened to that championship since. But being attached to Edge and being in a faction, and who knows how long this will be, here's the question that I brought up, and I said this to you on Monday. This could not have happened with Aleister Black. You mean to tell me that they couldn't have done this same thing with Aleister Black when he was reading the book? What was it? The Book of the All-Father or whatever? Get that gimmick that they were building for him on SmackDown, and he started that feud with Big E. You mean to tell me that they couldn't have done this exact same thing with Aleister Black, who is now in AEW as Malachi Black?
Peeps,
come on.
There's one thing that I've heard from this one wise man, and no, it's not Paul Heyman, and the whole phrase is different strokes for different folks. So who knows? Vince may not have really wanted to go ahead and put this on Aleister. But I mean, I would have enjoyed it. I know many other fans would have enjoyed it.
Oh, yes.
But I mean, Vince McMahon for you. What can you say?
Yes. He's your first I digress, and there it goes.
First one of the day, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking of this, we have a question from RPR316. So Hot Rod, welcome. He says, do you believe Roman Reigns can call me Mr. WrestleMania? Good grief. Lord have mercy. Judging by what Peeps has just said, I guess that just goes ahead and says everything. But I don't think you'll be Mr. WrestleMania until you can probably go ahead and take this title off me. And the fact of the matter is this. Peeps, let me know. If you want to see me go ahead and whoop Hot Rod 316 and regain my World Heavyweight title, give me a hell yeah.
We'll let the people go ahead and say that. We'd imagine you sitting there, listening, watching YouTube or wherever you are.
I can hear it already. Yes, hell yeah. But there's another reason we can go ahead and say, oh hell yeah. Peeps, for 13 minutes, I got to go ahead and see Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle his definite last match.
Yes.
When I thought that this wasn't going to happen. Why? Because the man has a broken freaking neck.
Yes.
Peeps, the man literally just wrestled in 2022.
Yes. This is not classic. This wasn't classic sports. This wasn't the WWE Network. Yes, we got to see Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2022 wrestle in the main event of one night of WrestleMania. Yeah. When we initially thought that the main event of the show was going to be a Roddy Piper-like interview, we thought there was going to be some kind of an altercation,
of course,
a stunner here, something along
mud holes. Who knows? Yeah, whatever.
Yes. But Kevin Steen, who's going by the name of Kevin Owens, decided this whole thing was a ruse to get Austin in the ring so that he can have a fight. Now, notice what he said. He didn't say a wrestling match. He said a fight. Which, perfect wording. The way he crafted the interview, the way he had been laying into Texas in general, but even more so. It was a masterpiece. If Austin said, if anybody wants to dance in a bowl of spaghetti, give me a hell yeah. He had the fans eating out of his hand.
Right.
If he decided to tell everybody to throw all of their money into the ring and give me a hell yeah, he said it, they would have done it. He had that entire building eating out of his hand. And when they literally said, okay, yeah, we're gonna have a fight. We're gonna have a fight. And then he asked, do you want to see me get into a match with this guy? And give me a hell yeah. And then there was a little bit of there was a point where everybody kind of like gasped, thinking, wait a minute, he should get a referee. Are we getting a match? We're gonna actually, and then all of a sudden,
you hear the bell ring.
You hear the bell ring, and then you see this referee traipse himself into the ring with his carcass and get in there, and they ring the bell, and I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna actually see a match. We're gonna actually see Austin. And the first thing that came to my mind is, please, Austin, don't hurt yourself. Please don't get hurt.
Exactly.
Please don't get hurt.
Exactly.
And we saw 57-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin
take bumps,
put on a match that was much better than I expected to see for somebody that has not been in a wrestling match in 19 years. And I have to give so much credit to not only Austin,
Kevin Owens,
credit to Kevin Owens. And here's the other thing that I'm going to bring up too. Outside of the Sami Zayn match with Johnny Knoxville, where they had that spot with the table and the mouse traps on it.
Yes.
This was the only part of the entire show on night one where they used a table. And the reason why, and this is something that I have to say made perfect sense, is if you're going to have table spots in a match, especially if it's going to be in the main event of a show like WrestleMania on night one, and it's Austin, no one else on the show should be doing table spots. Nobody else should be doing anything else, because it makes, when they do a spot, it makes it that much more special. And they did that in this match for everybody that was there. And for those that were in attendance, I'm sure they're kissing those tickets. They're putting it inside of a safe. They're going to put it in an envelope. They're going to have it signed. They're going to have it sealed. They're going to put it away for safekeeping, and then they can pull it out 5-10 years from now. I was at Stone Cold Steve Austin's final match where he beat the hell out of Kevin Owens and loved it. It was really fun.
And set the record for most beers taken in one WrestleMania with 35.
Oh, yeah. Somebody has to sign the guy that was chucking the beers to Austin. Somebody's got to sign him to a major league contract, because whoever is throwing it, that person's got an arm on him.
I mean, wow, they have a cannon. Listen,
Yes.
I guess Jerry can go ahead and sign him instead of Dak Prescott. But who am I? Any Texas fans that are in watching
Send
right now,
all of your
please don't
mail
hate
to
me.
my partner up there, right?
Please, Lord, no. But, peeps, that's the end of Fast Track. And I mean, here's the thing. This was one of the best moments of Mania. But the fact of the matter is that I'm playing Kingdom. So that can already tell you what the heck's going on right now, Peeps, how in the world did this end up happening? How? I mean, listen. Guys, I'm about to go ahead and put a picture into the chat. Not mostly into the chat, but you're going to go ahead and visually see this. And the thing about this picture is that it's not photoshopped. That picture is not the picture that you're looking at right now to my left is not photoshopped. This is 100% real. The emblem in the bottom right corner is 100% real. The peacock sign in the upper right corner
Yes.
is 100% real. The WrestleMania hashtag that usually goes straight to Twitter on the left upper hand corner is 100% real. The set, real. The logo on the Titantron, real. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that human being standing in the midst of it all with Old Glory strapped to his attire is 100% real. Ladies and gentlemen, Cody Rhodes is officially a part of World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yes.
Peeps, I mean,
Yes.
to think 2020 was a handful, 2022 is already on pace to be probably one of the craziest years in pro wrestling history.
Oh, yes.
The return of the prodigal son.
Yes.
A man who we've seen go from it all to nothing. Back to it all. Just to come back home. I'm speechless. Even to this day. Exactly 7 days after, I'm still speechless.
Yes.
Because after watching the many amount of interviews, especially the one after night one, where he actually spoke to media for about an hour and a half, to seeing him come back on Monday, which we'll get into in a little bit, and seeing him have a full-on promo where I actually shed tears, to seeing him on the bump in WWE studios to actually have that whole interview, to him being shown on WWE's social media page, recreating that old meme of him with the hand to the ear and looking dead into the camera, but this time with a smile on his face. As much as I'm enjoying and basking into this, he is too. And as a wrestling fan, not as a WWE fan, not as an AEW fan, as a fan of this God-given sport of professional wrestling, I am glad. But peeps, nothing settles it for me if I can't hear your thoughts on this yourself.
Oh, yes.
Because as much as I've been through a whirlwind of emotions, I know you have too. So
yes.
Take the floor, peeps.
Yes. And I will incorporate this even going into what happened on Raw the night after WrestleMania. So we have an athlete who started as part of a legacy. You get where you'll see where I'm going.
Pun intended.
Yes. Part of a legacy, and showed that he was handsome enough, but not star enough to have that crumble to dust before he dashed away to another promotion. And then he had to grow into becoming what he thought was going to be his dream. And then he became a nightmare to everyone that crossed his path. And that's why he had to come back home as the prodigal son to fulfill the legacy. See where I went 360 on that? Full circle back to his home to show everybody that his American dream was not a nightmare. The reason why I'm putting all of that together is Cody Rhodes spent 10 years in the WWE in developmental hell, being a tag team champion, being part of legacy. We know with Randy Orton and Ted DiBiase Jr., knowing that that was going to be a talent-filled legacy, building that out. And then subsequently, we know all of the other things that came about, and he broke his nose, and then he had the mask on. He was dashing Cody Rhodes, and then he became Stardust, which was supposed to be the complete antithesis of his brother Goldust, and we saw where that went. And the fact that the WWE, mostly Vince, did not know what to do with this great talent. And he had to leave this company and help start another one to realize the maturity that he had and that he needed, even though he went to New Japan for a spell, became part of Bullet Club, was able to do all of the things that he needed, including winning an NWA World Championship, and then showing I can be a champion. Not winning it in AEW, having only one title shot, leaving the company after helping build it with whatever backstage issues were happening between himself and Tony Khan, to go to the WWE. And as he said on Raw, the reason why he is there is to regain what his father never was able to, and that is to be WWE World Champion. And that first step had to happen at WrestleMania against Seth freaking Rollins. And I have to say, this was probably my second or third favorite match of the entire weekend. This match had everything involved. This reminded me of an old school Ring of Honor match as far as the pacing, the drama, how much he was loved. Because if you remember his last couple of months in AEW, the fans just turned on him.
I mean, yeah.
The fans in WWE gave him the love that he had been looking for and was searching for. And now he's going to finally get what he's really looking for here, I think. And that's the story going in. That's the story that they told. And I think he's looking for that happy ending of winning the WWE Championship, Universal, Unified, whatever the hell they named the thing.
Yeah.
This is where I think they're going to right now. And I think that that's what he was looking for in the long run.
I mean, peeps, you hit it right on the money, man. But I mean, the fact that we got to go ahead and sit there and anticipate this, as much as, you know, we didn't think we were going to go ahead and get, oh, wrestling has more than one royal family. We sat there thinking, okay, watch, it's going to be Shane. But then the pyro goes off, and then, you know, you sit there and lights dim. And you're sitting there and you're like, okay, maybe it is Cody. So if it is Cody, what is it going to be? You know, oh, probably smoke and mirrors. You know, who knows? But the fact that you heard the thumb, wrestling has more than one royal family. And you hear that pop. I mean, peeps, to think that, you know, for a moment there when I heard wrestling has more than one royal family and I heard the cheers, I was like, wait. Jaded WWE fans watch AEW? And I'm hearing them, you know, actually go ahead and sing along to Kingdom, and I'm just like, wait, they know the theme song? And I sit there and I see him come out from under that little elevator and looks over to those sea of fans.
Yes.
And it's just the way that he was trying to take it in. And I heard off of, you know, the bump as he was having his interview, and he answered one of Caleb Braxton's questions, and he said, you know, I sat there, and as I was, you know, done with the match, and I was sitting there in the back before I went into media and having to have the interview, I answered a text message from one of my good friends, Tony Schiavone. Surprisingly, he mentioned Tony Schiavone on WWE television.
Skivone.
How annoying, exactly, peeps. Like, this is the world we live in now, where we have to accept the fact that we're actually getting this, you know?
Yes.
And he says, Tony said that I was like in a dream-like trance where I didn't know where the heck I was going, but the minute that the pyro went off, I was locked in. And you can see that totally through the entrance. But the fact that these men told that big of a story in the span of 21 minutes, where you have Seth Rollins, a guy who was somewhat, you can say, handpicked by not only Triple H, but the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, God rest his soul, to be the first inaugural face of NXT by winning the NXT title. And being handed that title by Dusty, going up against Dusty's second generation son, who not only comes back as Cody Rhodes, but comes back as the man who once left, started a whole new revolution as somewhat a spat in the face to his prior company, and to be back with the same name that he used in that Revolution stable, same gear, same theme song, to face one of Dusty's proteges. What better way to go ahead and tell a story, Pete?
He came back to WWE as his own creation, with no bluster, knocked off, none of that craziness. What ended up happening is that Cody came back with his own music, his own pyro, his own entrance, and his own soul, which is something that a lot of wrestlers don't get that opportunity to do when they leave from another company, even if they have a name. That Vince McMahon is so very well stated. We've seen this before.
Yes.
And I've said this before to other people. If Vince did not create you, he will definitely unmake you, to try to break you down into a new character and then build you up to something else that he can market. There are some names that you just can't do that with. A guy like Flair, a guy like Dusty Rhodes, even though he tried with the polka dots, and he made the polka dots work because he's Dusty Rhodes.
He's Dusty Rhodes.
And of course, somebody like Cody, who we already know has a name, has an aura. He can cut great promos. He has a presence. And the fact that he was able to come back at WrestleMania and then have that emotional promo on Raw the night after and let everybody know and put the entire company on notice, I am here to win gold and fulfill my father's destiny that he was never able to fulfill. That's going to be the overarching story between now and potentially next WrestleMania. Who knows? If they can keep this up for a whole year, I'm locked in. There you go.
There's so many different stories. There's so many different ways that this can go ahead and happen.
Oh, yes.
I could have sworn you were about to go ahead and say I'm all in, but you know, we saved that pun for another time, sadly. But listen, the fact of the matter is this: Cody is back. That's definite. He signed a multi-year deal with World Wrestling Entertainment. That's good. He's back as the American Nightmare, not Dashing Cody Rhodes or not Stardust. Although we did get that little Stardust taunt at WrestleMania, if you caught that.
Yes.
But, you know, aside from all of that, he's back. And after that promo on Raw, where he said that he's back, not only because he wants to be back, but because he wants to go ahead and fulfill that destiny of being world champion in WWE. Which, peeps, to me, if I could, right now, I would go ahead and have him have the title at WrestleMania Backlash if I could. I mean, I'm all there to see him go ahead and win the title. But the thing is this. I think that it would happen in two different scenarios. Either one, it happens at SummerSlam this year, which is taking place at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Let that sink in, peeps. Nashville, Tennessee. A place where Dusty actually became a household name. Memphis Championship Wrestling, can never forget it. Peeps, think about it. To have Cody probably win it there. I'll put that out now. But I mean, you know, that's just me.
Yes.
But I don't think it's going to happen next year's WrestleMania.
I really don't think
that.
I don't think so either.
To me, the closest, I think Cody would still be able to steal the show next year. And that would be against Randy Orton. That's me, because I certainly do think that RK Bro will be broken up sooner or later. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yes.
I do think that if he goes ahead and faces Orton next year's WrestleMania, and I'm going to predict this now because they still haven't said where's the location for WrestleMania 40. I do think that WrestleMania 40 will take place in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the main event for that year's Mania will be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the WWE title. And it will end with pyro going off, confetti in the air, and so many thousands and thousands of fans cheering for Cody Rhodes after he wins that title. And that's how I see it going. But to me, there is enough time to go ahead and build him up more. Of course, I like how they're letting him, you know, freely cut promos and interact with the fans the way that he did during AEW years. And I say during AEW years because at this point it sounds so old and old-fashioned and traditional for me to go ahead and sit here and say, listen, I watched Cody while he was first here in WWE, while he was at AEW, and while he came back. Peeps, I've been Peeps, keep this in mind. 16 years. I've watched this man for 16 years. Peeps, I gotta be at least 45 now. I promise you this. Like, you know, it's crazy. But the fact of the matter is that he now says wrestling. Okay, not sports entertainment. That's the funny part. He says wrestling.
Yes.
The W word. The one word that Vince hates, he says wrestling.
The one dirty word that nobody can usually say in this company.
He says wrestling. And the fact that they even let him go out to the theme song, wrestling has worn the peeps. Yes. And then he talks about how he really went ahead and spat in the face of Triple H by going ahead and being the throne breaker.
Yes.
You know, how he dictates himself as that other royal family aside from the McMahons. How they let him use that theme song that is pretty much a diss towards the McMahon family. listen, I'm sold on it. If Vince is not going to go ahead and break Cody Rhodes, which I don't think he would want to do, I certainly do think that Vince is sold on making Cody the face of the company in a span of 2 years. I mean,
we'll see.
He already
definitely will see.
I mean, he already sold out, his whole attire during the first 2 days of it just being out. The man has gotten how many views on social media since the moment he debuted, or should I say came back? Almost any other thing that you put of Cody. If you just look up WWE and social media right now, the first 5 slides are just going to be Cody moments. I mean, peeps.
Yes.
It's this crazy to the point where, it's, he's back and, I don't think he's going to leave anytime soon unless Vince goes ahead and does something stupid, which I hope is not the case.
We've seen it happen, so let's not act as if it can't, because we've seen,
of course,
handcrafted things for the WWE that they could have ran with and made money and just absolutely destroyed. We know that they're good at starting storylines. They're terrible at finishing them off.
Exactly. But hopefully they don't turn this one into a definite nightmare.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Cody Rhodes is back. We as wrestling fans are happy. We know you're happy.
Yes.
And tomorrow, and at least, this Monday, we get to go ahead and see him face The Miz, which was just reported today. So listen, rivalry renews. Many different faces to go ahead and see him go ahead and face, although I do think a feud with Seth Rollins up until SummerSlam is the right way to go. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm glad to see Cody back as the American Nightmare, and I'm ready to see where he goes next.
Yes.
All I know is that I need to be in the building the moment he wins that title. Because at this point, peeps, history is right in front of us.
Yes.
And think that we're really living into it is amazing.
Yes.
But, guys, that is the end to the first half of Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, we're not going to go ahead and hold you for long because we have to go ahead and get into the next one. But before we do that, of course, we have to go ahead and go into commercial break. So, guys, don't worry. In about 30 seconds, we will be back to go ahead and have Peeps' favorite, the questions, and our last topic, Saturday afternoon's main event. So don't go anywhere. The second half of S.A.M.E. is coming up next. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we said, second half of Saturday afternoon's main event is right now. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the questions. Peeps, listen, I'm going to just go ahead and put these out that, you're going to enjoy these questions. Although, most of them are just pretty much WrestleMania related or esque. So let's just see how this goes. Okay. And the first one comes from Tombstone City Adam, and he says, I'm a fortune teller, just give me my flowers while I'm here. Of course, last week, he went ahead and he said, today's the day that Cody will go ahead and come back to the WWE and face Seth at WrestleMania. And we somewhat, not really doubted him, but said, if it happens, it happens.
Yes.
Well, to your demise and every other wrestling fan's demise, it happened.
Yes. And I remember I booked this as Seth versus the question mark.
Yes.
So I guess
or
we can
silhouette.
finally say the silhouette. So we can erase that whole thing and just go ahead and say, look, it was Cody. I didn't want to put the cart before the horse. Exactly. But we know what happens when that we've seen all of the stories. We knew what was going to happen. So yeah, I will give you credit. So
exactly. So Tombstone City Adam, yeah, we'll give you a flowers while you're here. We'll acknowledge you. How about that?
There you go.
All right, there we go. Next one comes from Peeps' most favorite fan, and Tony We Trust. He says, who knew that in 2022 WWE would allow wrestling to be said and your promos to have you tear up?
Yes.
Listen. When Cody said, Dusty is of course my father, but he's my hero, and you hear that voice crack, Peeps.
Yes.
Trust me, I lost it. I was like, oh God.
Yes.
And I was like, go on, boy. Win the title. Go on, boy. Win the title. I was like, I'm here for it. But who would think Vince would allow this?
That's right, baby. He's right there for you, baby. Right there, the bull of the woods, baby. Yes, that is exactly what we wanted to see. We wanted to hear the emotion. This is what we were looking for. See, this is the thing. I've dumped on WWE for a very long time for very obvious good reasons.
Yes.
But they have the capability to turn a lot of this stuff around by giving the fans what they want, which is something compelling. Don't put a lot of this gimmick garbage around, which I have to say, after watching SmackDown last night, and I texted you a bunch of times about some of the nonsense that went on.
Don't even get me started.
All you have to do is go ahead, take that wrestler. Notice I said wrestler. Let them be themselves. Turn the volume all the way up. Put a spotlight on them. Let them talk. You give them a couple of bullet points. Talk about this, talk about this, talk about this, and let everything else come natural. That is all you need to do. It's very simple. And you see the result, you actually get compelling entertainment in a sports-like atmosphere. You don't have to go and call it sports entertainment. You call it what it is. Wrestling. What a concept. I wonder where that came from.
Listen, Sonny, we agree with you, man.
Great
this is
question.
What we needed.
Yes.
And we got it. I'm glad.
Yes.
Next one comes from HBK Chris 01, and he says, so it looks like there isn't going to be a new version to the title.
Well, I remember seeing a picture about a week before WrestleMania stating that they were going to have some kind of a new unified championship belt, which would kind of have blue and red incorporated in it, similar to the new NXT championship. Because I don't know if you've noticed, after Stand and Deliver, they actually put the unicorn vomit colors into the gold medallions and then kind of incorporated it into the belt. So a lot of people thought something similar would happen. And you know what? I would not have a problem with that, because, holding two belts, as you know, holding one belt it can be taxing on the shoulder. So you can only imagine having two championships.
Peeps, you don't have to say too much. I mean, this one right here is already hefty enough.
Yes.
Put it over my shoulders twice. I felt like I just deadlifted 200. So you don't have to say too much. I see why they call it the big gold belt. But trust me, I like the Undisputed title back in 02. It was a good looking concept to the title. But I mean, if there has to be a new version to the title, I don't know what they can come up next. Because I mean, the titles just keep getting more modernistic instead of more traditional.
Yes.
I want to see something of a more traditional concept to the titles instead of being modernistic. Because having it be more modernistic is much more of a kid's toy than just what it is as prestigious. You look at a title and you're just supposed to say, this is what the head marker of the business is. This is what you fight for your whole life. Not a toy, not a little gimmick title, but something prestigious. So if they still have the title in the works and it's still being put in the works, let's wait and see what it looks like. But if there isn't going to be a new version, if they're just going to go ahead and separate the titles like what they did with Becky Lynch after, Mania 35, okay, so be it. But, I want to see what happens. So, good question, HBK Chris 01.
Yes.
Last question comes from the Doctor of Thugonomics, and he says, in comes Cena versus Roman at next year's WrestleMania.
Oh, dear God, no.
You see my face right now?
Yes. That's
yeah. Did we
not do this last year with Cena and Roman Reigns? Did we just not go through this last year? I mean, it's a good match, but we've seen it before a million times. And not to say that they won't have a good match, but what else could they be doing? If last year's feud happened while Roman Reigns is the way he is now, at the pinnacle of his and at the pinnacle of his arrogance and his excellence that he has shown now, that would be compelling. But that match, that storyline, they did that last year. I don't think that it's going to be as compelling happening again.
I hear you, peeps, but then I think, because here's the thing. when Cena was facing Roman, he was facing him for the Universal title.
True.
So they were billing this as, oh, Cena is going to go ahead and win his 17th world title. They don't really call it that, you know?
True.
They just call it the Universal title. So most people wouldn't think it would count. Maybe if that's his logic. And it's Hollywood. And you know, as much as Rock is the new face of Hollywood, so is Cena. If Roman has both titles, and is considered the unified WWE title, so now with the implications of having the World Championship alongside with it, maybe Cena going after it now makes it more prestigious and more of a chance of him wanting the title and making it that 17th title reign to beat Rick's 16th? But then again, I'm just a 500-pound gorilla in the room, so maybe my thoughts don't really correlate with what you're thinking, Doctor of Thugonomics. But probably to go ahead and probably throw it overboard. Why not just go ahead and have The Rock, Cena, and Roman Reigns main event next year's WrestleMania?
Hey,
And
we'll see what they do with that unified, undisputed WWE Universal Alpha Omega Supreme Galactus Championship belt. We'll find out what they do.
At least he didn't go ahead and implement 24/7 I-75 495 title.
Yes.
Yes, in the words of R-Truth. Shout out to R-Truth for that one.
Yes,
but,
yes.
You know, I like the side of that, peeps, but I mean, we have to see what happens, you know?
Yes.
But guys, that's the end to the questions. As we always say, you want to go ahead and shoot more questions to be featured on the next show. Down below, peeps, just point to it. Go and follow us on Instagram at Saturday Afternoon's Main Event and send us in a question through our DMs, and we will be sure to have it featured on the next show. But that is the end to questions. And now we go into our final match of the rest of S.A.M.E, which was also the final match of WrestleMania. The stupendous, most biggest WrestleMania match of all time.
Yes.
But listen, was there really anything stupendous about this match?
But then there was the... No.
But I mean, they did have the... I don't know.
It was basically what you figured it was going to be.
Yes. There we go.
Yes.
I like the sound of that, peeps. Yeah. Listen, I'm a huge mark for Roman Reigns. I acknowledge the Tribal Chief. My first time acknowledging the Tribal Chief was in MSG at a SmackDown, and having so many other New York fans in unison not boo, but cheer Roman Reigns. And when he told the fans to acknowledge him, that is exactly what he got.
Yes.
I am a fan of Roman Reigns. I am a fan of the Bloodline. I'm a fan of the Island of Relevancy, the Tribal Chief, whatever you want to call it. That whole fiasco and storyline in itself is what draws me to WWE at this certain point in time. I remember many years back, I was a little kid, about in 6th or 7th grade, and WrestleMania 31 was happening. Now, I had to go ahead and leave because I couldn't watch the first 3 hours of the show, due to the fact that I was a young aspiring kid having to go ahead and worry about going to church in the afternoon to somehow help with the younger adults. It somehow wasn't drawing to me that I needed to be there, and I wanted to be at home to watch Roman versus Brock Part 1. Although I didn't think this would end up being a trilogy, I wanted to watch the first match, and I ended up being there for the last 4 minutes of the match, in which Seth Rollins ended up winning the World Heavyweight title, which I was pissed off about. But it's okay, because, you know, Brock didn't pin Roman. Fast forward to WrestleMania 34. Same match, same style, differences. I got to watch this one, and it wasn't anticipating. I really didn't enjoy it. It was whatever to me. So, leave that aside. these guys go ahead and put on a 10-minute match. Suplex after suplex, Superman punch after Superman punch, spear after spear. Roman puking out blood for God's sakes and ends up losing the match. Whatever. But now fast forward, after 7 WrestleManias, you would think that they finally got it right. The end-all be-all. The match to end all matches. Both titles on the line, respective brands. 2 colossal behemoths battling it out for that supremacy over World Wrestling Entertainment. Peeps, walking into this match and the pyros going off and seeing 70,000 fans, not 100,000, which is not surprising, in AT&T Stadium, awaiting the arrival of Brock Lesnar, and hearing that theme song come on and seeing the fans enjoy whatever it was, and hearing Paul Heyman announce Roman Reigns, and hearing Brock Lesnar announce himself, which was pretty funny, and seeing both titles being lifted up before the bell rung, and then the bell rings, and peeps, I promise you, it was like I had Hogan and Andre vibes. I sat there thinking to myself, oh man, this is the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. But peeps, little did I know that once again, 15-year-old Rich Mara had to go ahead and relive the fact that this wasn't going to be anything different from the last 2 WrestleMania matches consisting of these 2 men. So peeps, to go ahead and let the fans know, what are the moves that we got consistently? As you were going ahead and telling me prior to the show, you can go ahead and start now.
Okay. Suplex, clothesline, suplex, spear, Superman punch, suplex, F5, spear, power slam. It's pretty much what happened for the whole match. Yeah, I could go on, but I think that we might get a copyright strike for infringing on match style of what happened. So yeah, it literally was what I just brought up, and it was one of those things that I kind of thought, I was like, I hope it's different than this, because as you've heard me expound before, one of my favorite trilogy of matches was Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. They could wrestle each other 8,000 times, and you would get a different match every single time. And the reason why is because they were allowed to wrestle to the crowd. If I'm doing this move a little bit more and they're booing it, okay, well, let's not do it as much. Or let's kind of let the heel tease that he's going to do it to try to anger the fans to draw heat. Oh, if they like to see this move work by the face, let's do that. All in the framework of, we know what the beginning is, we know what the finish is. As long as we know what the finish is, we'll give the fans whatever the heck they want. And the problem is that this match was literally like eating ice cream 7 days a week. Tastes good the first time. Tastes really good the second time. By the time you get to day 7, you're kind of sick of it. It's like, it's sweet, but I need to get something completely different. You know, maybe put a little bit of chocolate on it, or maybe a little bit of whipped cream. No, it's the same vanilla ice cream. It's the exact same thing with this. Roman, at one part of the match, especially during getting put in the Kimura, which we saw as well, looked like he pulled his arm out of the socket, which looked brutal. And there's that part where he started to wrench onto the arm. And there was a spot where he got to the ropes. Roman kind of yelled out to Paul Heyman, I think it's out. I think it's out. And he looked like he popped his arm back in. So that was interesting. As you could tell when the match was over, holding up both belts, he could barely hold one of the belts up because his shoulder was that hurt. So looking at it, it was more of the same. And you've heard me say this before. Anytime a promoter puts 5,000 superlatives in front of something that's supposed to be the greatest, most stupendous, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious type match you ever see.
Shout out to the Sonic music.
Exactly. What you end up getting is underwhelmed. And I think that was the saddest part, because this was supposed to be the way it was billed as. They painted themselves in a corner. I remember saying this months ago. I hope that they don't go with this unification thing, and that I hope that Roman loses one of those belts prior to WrestleMania, so that you would have a proper main event with a championship on Raw, since obviously Roman isn't going anywhere off the SmackDown brand. And we know that that's the way that they've been booking.
Of course.
Now that we have this unification thing, what are they going to do? Because as I said a little earlier in the show, now you have to worry about overexposing Roman. What makes Roman special outside of what he can do in the ring is the fact that you don't see him on Raw, NXT, then SmackDown. You see him once a week, and then every so often he may not be on. But that's what makes him special. That's what they used to do with the world champions back in the day with Ric Flair. You'd see him maybe cut a promo, but you wouldn't see him in the ring every week.
Of course.
This is what you're supposed to do. They're going to do what they've done with previous champions. He's going to probably be on Raw. He's going to probably be on SmackDown. And if he isn't on Raw, you bring up the extra point now of saying we now have no major championship on Raw that anyone thinks is believable that someone on the Raw roster, up until we talked about Cody, being a viable challenger to a championship. And as I also stated earlier in the show, what happens if Roman gets hurt? You have no champion on Raw or SmackDown. So then you got that particular issue. And it's obvious that the WWE doesn't care about the secondary championships, because the United States Championship or the Intercontinental Championship weren't even defended on WrestleMania's card 1 or 2. As a matter of fact, neither of the wrestlers that were there were even on the card. But I'm going to calm down.
Of course.
I'm going to calm down. This is part of the problem with what they've done with Roman. In giving him all of the riches, they've robbed the rest of the company of what they needed as far as having the championships and that kind of thing. Let's see where they go from here. I'll reserve judgment until I give it a month and see where they go. But as you can hear in my voice, I have a lot of trepidation of this whole thing. I like what they've done, and Roman deserves all of the accolades and all of the credit that he is going to be acknowledged for. But I don't think that this is something that's going to be all around great for the health of the on-air product.
Exactly. Well, peeps, I guess the only thing we can do is just sit there and wait till next year's WrestleMania. Because, at this point, I could care less that the titles are unified. Okay, cool, the titles are unified. But it's like, there's a reason why there are separate brands now on two separate television networks. Each one is supposed to have their own champion. So, listen, at the end of the day, somebody has to go ahead and dethrone him on one of the titles. I mean, if he wants to keep the Universal title, have him keep the Universal title. But I mean, somebody has to have the WWE title on the Raw brand. It's just proof is in the pudding. They need to have it, because if they don't have it, what happens next? So as you said, we'll have to wait and see. But
before we go, I just have to just a slight thing to bring up, without question, before we forget when we go off the air. The Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair match at WrestleMania was by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the single best match of both nights, bar none. That match could have main evented either day, and it should have. It was that good.
Peeps,
for those that have not seen it,
go back to Peacock.
Go in your various different services to be able to get it. Look at it on Peacock or wherever you see your premium live events.
Yes.
And I want you to sit down and watch a treat of a match It had drama. It had technique. It drew heat. It drew emotion. It had athleticism, and it had a definite winner. And it was without question one of the best WrestleMania matches that I have seen in a while. And this is not hyperbole. This is coming from Nate. That was one of the best matches that I've seen. One of the best matches ever, and without question, the best match of the whole weekend of nights 1 and 2. Period.
There's two things about that match. And to bring up another thing that it did have a messed up eye. But guess what? Guess what? It still had a champion at the end of the day. Yes. But, as Peep said, this match has to be top 3 for this year's WrestleMania. And guess what? It's not even 2 or 3. This match was number 1.
Yes.
Because if I can go ahead and rank top 3 WrestleMania matches right now, it goes like this. Number 1, Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. Number 2, Seth versus Cody. And 3, Edge versus AJ. You can't put any other match in front of those 3 matches. All 3 of them stole the show in their respective ways. So if you guys need to go ahead and go back into watching that, go back into watching it.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, Peeps, good that you brought that up. Because, I mean, from the entrances to that final 3 count.
Yes, it had big match feel all over it. The drama was there from Becky. The drama was there from Bianca. Her theme being played by the marching band. And then it's one of those things, and I talked about this with another friend of mine, was that, remember way back in the day, you look at a pay-per-view, and you know that it was in a giant arena. You'd have like 50, 60, 70,000 fans. And they're cheering and cheering, knowing that their hero is going to come out. And then literally the second that person starts to walk out from out backstage to the stage and get out in front of the fans, and it would slowly build. And then all of a sudden they're on stage and wow, they lose it. It's bedlam. They've lost their minds. And it's that, those are the moments that you pull out, that as much as the WWE has had its things up and down, they do this better than a lot of other people. They've been doing it long enough, longer than anybody else, to get the fans to the event on the side of their heroes. And they built this up so that it was serious enough and important enough that whoever walked out there that they billed as that star, you felt it before they even got to the ring. And that's how last year Bianca was so emotional in her match with Sasha Banks. This, she had that experience because she finally been there. She'd been there before. She knew how to kind of tamp down that emotion and drink it in.
But the
that's
thing
exactly
with that
what
was,
she did.
And the best thing about it, she knew who she was. Because,
yes,
of course, when she first won the women's title at the main event of Mania last year, of course, the tears, the utter emotion. And when she held up that title this year, and she looked in that camera, she said, "I'm the boss."
Yes.
Remember that.
Yes.
Peeps.
Yes.
Wow. But trust me, Mania this year, I have to say, I'm going to say this now, it was better than 36. It was better than 35, 34, 33, 32, and 31. And I say that easily with an open heart because the last best Mania to me was WrestleMania 30. WrestleMania 38 proved to be a stupendous WrestleMania.
Much better than I definitely expected.
Yes.
I went in there with lowered expectations and about 5 matches that I wanted to see, and it ended up being pretty good.
Exactly. I didn't even think I was going to want to go ahead and see some of those matches, and to think that I sat in front of that computer to watch it from start to finish and actually be anticipated that it was WrestleMania.
Yes.
Trust me, I wouldn't have thought. And now I'm actually sitting here being prepared for WrestleMania Hollywood and any other WrestleMania to come after this, because truth be told, peeps, after Cody's entrance back into the WWE, Vince has actually put a screw in my head where I think one is loose to the point where I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm actually getting back into the groove of World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yes.
And I think a lot of fans are.
I'm like Jesse Ventura. I call it like it is. And if it's good, it's good. If it's garbage, I'll tell you to get the hefty bag. But for right now, it like I said, it wasn't great as far as I'm concerned, because as I've said before, I compare the build and the quality of matches to WrestleMania 3, which is a very high, lofty thing to do.
Exactly right.
Now, obviously, we've had better sets, better pyro, better emotion, bigger building, that kind of thing. But for sheer big fight feel, I go to the drama from WrestleMania 3. And certain matches had it, and then others had it was like, okay, this could be the sleeper match of the night. And then you're pleasantly surprised by the end of the show. I was much more speechless than I thought I would be based on that. But as I said, that championship match that ended WrestleMania's night 2, that left a sour taste. So,
Oh yeah. Which means that night 1 was 100% better than night 2.
Yes.
To every wrestling fan.
Yes.
And that is why also Saturday afternoon's main event is always better than any other YouTube wrestling show that you ever probably go ahead and watch. So to the fans, thank you for going ahead and sticking there with us. But aside from that, this marks the end of episode 8, Saturday afternoon's main event. Peeps, it's crazy to think that we're already, 3/4 of the way through the 3rd season?
Yeah, go figure.
Crazy enough, huh? But I mean, yes, ladies and gentlemen, which means we only have, about 3 or 4 episodes left into the 3rd season, which means, peeps, we are going to be due for a vacation. How nice.
Yes.
But certainly, guys, we always have to go ahead and say thank you for every episode that you guys sit and watch with us, because without you, we are nothing. Correct. So thank you for going ahead and tuning in. Thank you for going ahead and being the fans that you guys are. So, without further ado, thank you for sitting here and watching episode 8 of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Tune in next week for episode 9 and for the many other pieces of wrestling news and segments that we will have prepared for you. And maybe, just maybe, Peeps will go ahead and show off his too. We will be twinning for sure next week. Hopefully, we do. And hopefully, if Hot Rod wants to go ahead and come on the show too and spit facts on why he should go ahead and be the next one up for a contenders match, Peace, which one of us will gladly go ahead and hand him that title match? Out of curiosity.
The one that could take the chop the best.
I think that's you. I'll leave it out to you. But certainly, on this episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, I, the Phenomenal One,
and I, the Peeps Nate,
we came,
we saw, and of course, in the words of Paul Heyman, we conquered.
Ladies and gentlemen, we conquered. See you next week for episode 9. Signing off right now is Peeps Nate alongside the one, the only Phenomenal One. We will see you next week. Peace, love,